When I was looking for dinner ideas to put on my menu this week, I saw a picture of Cuban Mojo Pork and it just like immediately grabbed my attention. So I read through a couple different recipes that I found on the internet and then pieced together one that would work for me. So let's go ahead and try this new recipe out together. And because I wanted to do a complete meal tonight, I'm also making roasted. Watson's outside barking. Sorry guys, I got all the windows open because it is gorgeous outside. Spring has sprung. Okay, I'm distracting myself. Anyway, so the Mojo pork, roasted potatoes, and I don't know if y'all ever heard of it. I think it's a Southern dish. I haven't had it in years. Used to eat it at Girl Scout camp of all places, but a version of a succotash. That's another one where I quickly looked it up on the internet because it's been so long since I've made it. There's a gazillion different recipes out. So I'll just show you a basic one that I came across. All right, let's get started. So yesterday I went ahead and created a marinade, and this is a vacuum sealer. So this has been marinating since yesterday afternoon. I'm going to put in a voiceover of how I did the marinade right here.
In the small bowl of my food processor, I'm putting about 1/4 cup of mint. I would have used more, but that's all my spring mint gave me. Then you're going to use as much garlic as your heart desires. I think I threw in about 8 or 10 cloves. Next, you want to use a microplaner and zest. Use the zest of one orange. Smells so good. And just make sure that you don't work the white in there. Just get the outside orange part. After zesting the orange, we're going to go ahead and pour in some lime juice, a couple tablespoons, 1/4 of a cup. The next ingredient to go into the food processor is cilantro. I just tore the tops off of a bunch. Next, I'm cutting an orange up small enough that it can fit into my lemon press. I don't have one of those kind of jars where you can squeeze a half of an orange on there to juice it. So if you cut it up into eighths like this, then it will fit in most lemon presses. And as you can see, I kind of need to get a new one. This one's starting to get a little rusty. It's very, very old. It was given to me by a friend, and I'm having a hard time letting go of it because it makes me remember her every time I use it. After squeezing all the orange segments in, go ahead and put in somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 cup of olive oil. Again, I don't measure, just kind of glugs them in there. And then about a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half of salt and some pepper. Then you're going to put the lid on it and process it until everything is basically a puree. It's going to be on the loose side. This is a marinade. You want it to be kind of liquidy so that it will marinate your pork. Tonight I'm using this on a pork loin. So I'm opening it up and I'm using a vacuum sealer, but you don't have to. Just, you're going to want to marinate this overnight, which I'll talk about more later. But the vacuum sealer just helps push the flavors into your pork even more so. So I'm just pouring the marinade onto my pork, and then I'm going to kind of massage it in and just make sure that all the pork is nice and coated. Next, I put the lid on, set the dial to the vacuum/marinade, and I'm going to run my vacuum sealer and let it suck out all of the air. And I'm going to put it in the refrigerator to marinate overnight. And I'm checking the lid there to make sure that it's got a nice seal on it. And this thing works amazing.
Okay, so if you can't marinate it overnight, just a couple of hours will be better than nothing, but I figured for this dish, it was gonna go ahead and be worth it to marinate it ahead of time. A lot of times I'm all for quick marinades, but I wanted the most flavor possible. So you can hear the air escaping from my vacuum packed sealer.
Correction, because that's not how science works. The air was going back into my vacuum sealer.
And oh my gosh, the orange juice, the garlic, oh gosh. I mean, this is just gonna be so tasty. So I have a cookie sheet right here. I'm gonna spray it with some cooking spray, and then I'm going to preheat my oven to 425. So I don't know about y'all, but the intimidating part about cooking roasts and large meats like this is knowing your cooking temperatures and times. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you that it is one of those things that I just play around with. I'm going to set my oven for very high. I'm going to cook it for like 30 minutes. We're going to check on it, check its temperature, and then we will lower it or raise the temperature based on where it is at that point. I'll wash my hands, and then we're going to start the side dishes. Hi, this is future Amanda here. I'm halfway through the cooking process because this is kind of one of my dinners where I am learning as I go. I will put how long the final dish cooked down in the description box because I'm kind of playing around with it. And I'm going to use timestamps so that way if you just want to look at one of the dishes, since I am making 3 different dishes today. All right, enjoy. Okay, so I peeled, then chopped my potatoes. You don't want them to be, oh, I need to cut those smaller. Okay, you don't want them to be this crowded, so I realized that I'm gonna have to go ahead and use a bigger cookie sheet. Man, I did not chop these very well. So you want them to all be, you know, roughly the same size. So apparently I missed a slice. I'm gonna chop those up real quick. Let's make a seasoning. Okay, so I'm gonna do a bunch of salt. Potatoes just require a lot of salt, some pepper, and then I'm just gonna go kind of with my house seasoning of garlic, dehydrated garlic powder. This isn't garlic salt. Onion powder, which I need more of, getting low. It's so funny how I used to never cook with garlic powder or garlic salt, because growing up on Food Network, they made it sound like if you used garlic powder or garlic salt, and this is paprika, then like, oh, those just weren't like good enough ingredients. So I was trying to be like all fancy. No, garlic powder and garlic salt, definitely not garlic salt. Dehydrated garlic powder and onion powder have their place, because if you were to use freshly grated garlic on potatoes like this in the oven, it would burn. So yes, definitely don't listen to the fancy chefs. Home cook for the win. Okay, now I'm gonna put these on here so that we can spread them out, because if they are touching each other, they'll steam and not actually get crispy. So I put down this as a base just so the entire cookie sheet has a little thin layer of coat of oil, but that's never enough for like the flavor aspect, because the oil really does help get them nice and crispy. So I'm going to put down some olive oil. Then I'm going to sprinkle on my house seasoning and then coat these up really well. And these will go on the bottom rack of the oven after the pork has been in there for about half an hour, because these won't take as long as the pork to cook. But I just wanted to go ahead and prep them up right now. All right, let's get all this cleaned up and we'll do the succotash. Okay, we're gonna chop up half an onion. But I was really curious where succotash originated from, because I kind of always thought it was a southern dish, but then I was kind of thinking about it and I was like, I don't know. So I actually looked it up. It actually was first seen, we're gonna do half an onion. It showed up in 1751 from the Narragansett Native American tribe, and it's from the word, I wrote it down, Succotash is where they think that succotash came from, and they are from the Rhode Island area, and it literally translates to boiled corn. So I think that's really interesting, because corn is one of the main ingredients. And then usually I've only ever seen it with either lima beans or butter beans, and then other vegetables such as onion, which is we're gonna put in, and some carrots. And then it said that other times people will add meats to it to make it a whole meal, including fish or ham. So if you are familiar with this dish, I would love to know how your family makes it, and if it's something that you like or if you've even never had it before. It's funny, I just realized it said that it's normally boiled corn, but I'm actually gonna break the rules because I want it sauteed. So I've got my cast iron skillet here, and so that way I can just clear my cutting board as I work. I'm going to put my onions down in here and get this going on the back burner on low. We'll put it on medium low. Okay, then while I was pulling my carrot out of my refrigerator, I remembered I had this poblano pepper, which I actually had to cut a chunk out because it was starting to get a bad spot. And normally I wouldn't add anything spicy to my family's dinner because they don't like spicy food, but I've already eaten part of this poblano and it is super, super mild, and I think it'll add some good flavor. So I'm gonna just wash this carrot up, not even bother peeling it. I rarely peel carrots. I mean, unless I'm trying to like be fancy, I think that just washing them is perfectly an acceptable way. So I want little squares for my carrots. Normally I'm not very picky, but I'm gonna cut each carrot in half, and then I'm cutting these halves in half, being very careful with my knife, going slow, and then I will cut lengthwise down the length of the carrots, and then cut little cubes. For some reason in my head, this is just the shape that these vegetables need to be in this dish. I don't know why. Okay, I'm gonna cut up the rest of these and then some of this poblano. Okay, so in my skillet, I am sauteing those onions and the carrots. I've got my poblanos here because I don't wanna cook them down as much. I wanna keep the bright green color. But seriously, what do people do before Google? I always thought that, okay, so this is a butter bean, and I always thought, and they're really good. They've had like really nice creamy texture. I always thought that butter beans were these big ones and that lima beans were about like half the size, but I just Googled it. Apparently they are interchangeable. So I don't know what the difference, because some of them are very small. And those usually I see in cans labeled as lima beans, and I always see the big ones. Like when I opened up this can, I was expecting a big bean, got a big bean. So I'm not sure. I like the big ones better than the smaller ones, but apparently they're the same bean. I even said, like if they continue growing, does a lima bean turn into a butter bean? But it just said that they're the same bean. So very interesting. All right. I'm going to I want to get these nice and soft and translucent. The onions, I want the onions to be translucent. All right, so now that my onions are getting nice and soft, I turned it up a little bit. It's on medium. I'm gonna go ahead and lower it down some more. I'm gonna add in the butter beans. Uh-oh, corn overboard. Here comes cleanup crew. He's like, frozen corn? Yes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add in frozen corn. We're gonna salt, pepper, and then I'm gonna add a big pat of butter. Give this a stir. I don't want to break up the lima beans. They are a little bit fragile. So, did I call them lima beans that time? Butter beans, lima beans. Now we know they're interchangeable. Again, apparently a more authentic version of this dish is boiled, but I don't know. I just imagined it being sauteed like this, so that's how I'm doing it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add in my green peppers just to add a little color green, and oh my gosh, doesn't this just look delightful? Beautiful, beautiful side dish. Okay, so I pulled it out again. It's been about 40 minutes. You can see now why I put it on foil, but I wouldn't worry about that. The meat itself is looking really great. It is starting to get some color, but I'm not too worried about that yet. I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in the oven. I'm gonna keep it at the 425, and I'm gonna put the potatoes in because I wanna cook them at that temperature. And if we have to end up lowering it for the meat, I want the potatoes to cook at 425. Okay, so the meat has now been in for about an hour and it is done. I am so glad I caught on my thermometer. I was using Celsius at first and I was like, dang it, why is this still so raw in the middle? Okay, it is done. but we want to get some more color on it. So I'm going to leave this sitting out for a minute while my potatoes still cook, because they need about 10 more minutes. And then I'm going to put this under the broiler.
Because of my thermometer snafu of having it on Celsius versus Fahrenheit, I definitely would have pulled this at 45 minutes next time.
Okay, so my potatoes are pretty much done. So I'm going to go ahead and set my stove or my oven to broil. And then I'm going to lift this up and get some of the glaze and just put it back on top, because we want this to brown and give us that beautiful color. And we are going to watch this like a hawk. My potatoes are on the bottom rack, so I've still got them in the oven. They're far away from the broiler, so they'll just get a little extra crispy and they'll be fine. Okay, so let's stick this under the broiler and watch it so it does not burn. There you go. It was under the broiler for about 2.5 minutes, and you know, it's starting to get a little too brown, so we're calling it at that. My potatoes look amazing, as does my succotash. So I'm gonna plate it up and give it a taste. Actually, we're gonna let the meat rest for a few minutes then before we cut into it. We got some seriously good looking eats right here. I got hot with that 425 oven, so my hair is up, but we're gonna give this a taste. And then I can call the family downstairs. I'm so excited about these flavors. It's juicy, and the garlic and the orange juice, so light and refreshing flavor. I'm actually really surprised. I mean, I don't know why. Citrus is very refreshing, and the citrus is just like punch to the face here. Definitely give this a try. I also recommend, if you can marinate it for longer. A lot of times quick marinades are really good, but I wanted that citrus to be able to kind of go all the way through the meat, and it really did. I can tell. I just love a good crispy potato. And having the paprika on it is so good. And then let's taste our succotash, which I learned a lot about tonight. The corn kind of adds a little sweet flavor. The carrots pair very nicely. I love the butter beans. Like, some people really don't like butter beans, but I can sit there and like munch on them. They're so good. They, like I said, they have a very kind of creamy texture when you eat them. So thank you so much for going on this cooking adventure with me. I love bringing y'all into the kitchen. I'm a home cook. I have a lot of years of cooking experience, but some days I feel like I'm still just learning, because there's so much to learn. And I love bringing y'all along with me. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you please hit the like button. It really helps my engagement on the platform, and so that other people can see this video. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button if this is your first time to my channel and you'd like to see more content from me. And I can't wait to see you on the next video. Bye everyone.